Today, we're taking these classic Friendship Star blocks and turning them into something fresh, fun, and functional, a gorgeous springtime table runner. So join me. Let's get started. Okay, so for the things that you will need for this runner, first you're going to need your Friendship Star blocks. Now, I made these in a previous video. I will list that video up here at the top and also at the end of this video that you can refer back to how to make the Friendship Star block itself. Okay, for this runner, I'm going to use 3 of the blocks. Now, if you want your runner to be longer, you can add more of the friendship blocks to your runner to make it however long that you need it to be. I have a very long table, but I want to make mine a little bit shorter. I like to layer my runners, so I'll probably layer this on top of another runner that's actually longer for my table. So in addition to these blocks, you're going to need some more fabric. You're going to need, these are just a few strips, like 2.5-inch strips. I'm going to add these to the back of the runner, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to it. These I'm going to make into little blocks in order to add them to the ends of my runner and make my runner a little bit longer. I want to do it that way rather than adding more of the friendship blocks. And then you're also going to need a 9-inch square of a background color. I'm going to use the rosebud background that I used in my blocks. And you'll need backing fabric. My backing fabric, I cut it 17 inches by length of fabric, which is 44 inches. And then I cut another piece that is 12 by 17 inches that I'm going to put in the middle of my backing fabric and then add these strips to it to make it even longer. And I'll show you how to do that when we get to the backing. So I'll just set all these aside. We're going to work on our side blocks. So for the side blocks, you'll need 6 4.5-inch squares. And I'm making them scrappy, so I'm just going to add, just stack them like this, and I put the blue one in the middle. And I'll do this to both of these. And then I have some 1.5-inch strips that I'm going to add to the sides. I made my strips a little bit long just to make sure that they're long enough when I put these blocks together. They should be the 12.5-inch long, so it match up to your friendship blocks. Okay, and so I'll put the other strip on this side. So this will be one set, and then I'll do the same thing to the other set. So I'm just going to sew each of the blocks together end to end, and then sew the strips to the sides. So I'll do that, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I finished sewing each of my little side blocks together, and now I'm going to iron them. Now I wanted to show you that whenever you're sewing them on, you don't have to worry about the seams and which directions they're going or anything like that, because you're not going to have to match up any seams to the blocks itself whenever you put them together. I like to iron them in whatever direction the seams seem to want to lay, since I don't have to match them up. Okay, and so now all I have to do is just cut off this excess. That's why I like to make my strips a little bit longer than necessary, just to make sure that I get them long enough, and then I'll go and I'll cut the little excess pieces off to make it even. Okay, now I'll iron this one, and then we'll trim them up, and I'll tell you what the next step is. Okay, so I've ironed my 2 side panels, and I'm going to put them to the side. And the next thing that we're going to do is decide in what order that we want our runner or each of our blocks to go in. Now, since I have these 2 with the solids on top, I mean in the four corners here, and both of the stars are turned in the same direction. I'm going to put these on the end, and I'm going to put this one right here that just has the background fabric and the one star, and it's going in the opposite direction. I'm going to put this one in the middle. So now that I know how I'm going to line them up, I'm just going to start to sew them. I'm going to take this one over the middle one, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch seam down the side, and then I'll take this one on the other side and attach it to the middle block on this side. So I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew these up, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now that we have our blocks sewn together, I'm going to go ahead and sew my side panels together. I'm just going to line it up on this end like so, and sew it 1/4 inch here, and do the same thing on the other end with the other one. And one thing I want to show you that I'm going to do on this end is, you can see where this block is on the bottom. I'm going to put it at the top on this side, just so that it's opposite, and then sew that together. Okay, so I've sewn our end blocks to the ends of our friendship blocks. I just want to note that if you don't like that this fabric is the same, here that if you think it's too matchy-matchy, you can switch it out for a different fabric if you want. I'll show you the other end. Okay, so our next step, we have one more thing left to do to finish out the top of our runner, and that is to take our 9-inch square background fabric that I told you that you needed. Now I'm using this tone on tone with the rosebuds. I don't know if you can see that too good on the camera. And I'm going to use this one. So what we're doing is I want to make the ends of our top go to a point. So we're going to take this 9-inch square, and I'm going to cut it in half at a diagonal. Okay, and so what you'll do is then take the top of your runner, and then you're going to put your pin on here on the end, just like so, lining it up, and then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam down this panel. So that when you open it up, you'll have this nice tapered end. And you'll do that to both ends of your top of your runner. Okay, so I've sewn the two ends together to my runner. And I just want to show you how you're going to have like a little bit of a dog-eared on the end, and you just take your scissors and cut that off evenly. Okay. And now that we have our top finished, I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to start on our back. Okay, so for our back pieces, I've got the 44 by 17 inch piece. And the reason why I've cut it 17 inches is because I'm going to use the backing fabric itself to make my binding. So that, you don't have to do any separate binding. And I'll show you that method too. But since my backing is not long enough. It's 44 inches. I'm going to take it and cut it in half, so I'll have two 22-inch pieces. And then I'm going to add that other piece that I cut out that was 17 by 12 inches to this, in between those two 22-inch pieces. But before I do that, I'm going to add some of these strips of fabric, because I want to make it longer, but I also want to give it a little bit of a style or detail on the back. I like to do that with my backing so that they're not plain, especially if it's a solid color like this. So I'm going to add these, and these are rather long right now. You only need them to be 17 inches, but I'm going to take two different ones and I'm going to sew them together like so, and then I'll attach them to the side of my 12 by 17 inch piece, and then I'll do the same thing with the other two and attach it to the other side. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll meet you back here in a second. Okay, so I've finished my inside panel. You can see I sewed my two strips together, and then I sewed them to the 12 by 17 inch piece. And now I'm going to cut off the little excess pieces right here on each end to even it out. So just turn it. And then you can save these little pieces for your scrap pile to use for some other project. Okay, so now with our piece here, I've gone ahead and I've cut my 44-inch long panel into two pieces. So they're 22 inches now, and I'm just going to take it and sew it to each end of this middle panel. Of course, you can put some pins, or you can put some of these clips in here just to hold it together. And this should make my panel, my backing, long enough to... And if it's still a little bit long on the sides, that's okay, because you should have plenty on the sides of your runner to do your binding, and we may have to cut some of that off anyway, so I'm okay with it being just a little bit longer. Okay, so I've finished sewing our middle panel to both of our side panels, and our backing is done. So our beautiful table runner top and backing are ready to go, but we're not done yet. Join me in just a few days for part 2, where I'll show you how to layer our runner top and back together with batting, give you some ideas on how to quilt it, self-bind it, and finish it up so that it's table ready. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the big finish. And if you're stitching along with me, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what fabrics that you're using for your project. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Happy sewing, and I'll see you soon in part 2. Bye-bye for now.